Welcome class, lesson 7-8. Today, strong mathematicians can model related fractions, decimals, and mixed numbers. Please take out your notebook and a pencil, write down today's date, the lesson, and we're going to cannonball right in. You know about numerators and denominators that stay the same. Today, some new notes, though, about this one on some relationships that relate from money to help us get into the decimals as well. So we know that 100 pennies equals 10 dimes, which also equals $1. So that means 100 pennies equal $1. That also means 10 dimes equal $1. So what does that mean? What is 1 penny? Well, 1 penny is 1/100th of $1. So that means 1 penny equals, this would be the fraction of what a penny is worth. This would be the decimal of what a penny is worth. If we look at what a dime is 1/10th of $1, which means this would be what it's worth as a fraction of $1. This would be what it's worth as a decimal. Notice this one right here is in the tenths place, and the one here is actually in the hundredths place. So those are some things we want you to write down, especially this information right here about 1 penny and a dime, giving you an example of what the fraction value is worth and what the decimal value would be of a dime to help us out with today's lesson. So we're going to write the sum of pennies in each row as a fraction and a decimal. So if you look at this right now, we think about how many pennies are in the first, actually I should say column, not row, but whatever, we're going to go with it. In each column, there you go, I'm going to say that all day long today. The first column, though, there would be 10 pennies, so that would be 10 over 100. So if we counted all the pennies, there would be 100 pennies in that picture right there. So the next column would be plus another 10 pennies over 100, plus another 5 pennies over 100, which would give us an answer of 25 hundredths. Now that would be if we wrote them as a fraction. Now to write them as a decimal, what would these decimals look like? The decimals would look like this. 10 hundredths would be the same as 0.10. Plus 10 100ths would be 0.10. Plus 5 100ths would be 0.05 equals 0.25. If we add up our place values, just how we add up numbers, we put all of our decimals points together, and it would be 10, 10, and 0.5. And that's how when we add them up, you get the 5 right here, and the 1 plus 1 is a 2, and there's the decimal. So just like we have to line up place values in whole numbers, we have to line up our place values in decimals when we try to add them up. So you can pause the video down, write down these two number sentences to help you out, both the fraction and the decimal. Now we're going to jump over to write the sum of dimes in each column as a fraction and a decimal. So if we're talking about dimes, we would have 1 over 10 for the first dime, plus 1 over 10 for the next dime. Now we don't really have a dime in the next one, so we have to go with pennies, and that would be 5 over 100. What does that give us? That's still going to give us, if we have to use our decimals, we'll go to our decimals first. 1/10 is written as 0.1, plus 1/10 is written as 0.1. 1/500th is written as 0.05. We can line those all up again like we did last time. So we have 0.1, 0.1, the decimal's in the same spot, 0.05. Notice if there's nothing here, it's just like there would be a 0 there. So 0, 0, and 5 would be 5. 1 plus 1 plus 0 would be 2. So it'd still be 0.25. But notice we wrote them just a little bit differently how we were as we were writing our fractions. How do we have the top? Well, we'd have to make these into hundredths. So 1/10 we know is 10 hundredths from our last slide, which would then equal 25 hundredths, only because we would make this one 10 hundredths, and this one would also be 10 hundredths. When we add fractions, we have to make sure we all have the same common denominator. So you can pause this one down, write down these numbers as well to help us out. What if we went with quarters? Now we have a different little image there. We have more that's shaded in. Write the sum of quarters for each row as a fraction and a decimal. Well, we have to know that, first off, how many quarters make a dollar? Well, if we kind of look at this picture, we know that 4 quarters make a dollar. So that means 4 fourths equals $1. So a quarter would equal 1/4 is a quarter of a dollar. So now how will we write this fraction out? Well, we know 1/4 plus 1/4 would equal 2/4, or 2 quarters. How do I write this as a decimal? Well, if I got to figure out how to write it as a decimal, I got to think of it back to going to hundredths or tenths. So if I take off 1/4 and I want to make it equal to 100, because then I can write it as a decimal, 4 times what equals 100? I'm going to divide 4 by 100. 4 goes in there, 2. 2 times 4 is 8. 10 minus 8 is 2. Bring down the 0. 4 can go into 25 times. And then that would be 20. Gives me 0. So 4 goes into 25, so that's times this one by 25. And times 1 by 25. Which would give me 25 hundredths. So now how can I write that? It would be 0.25 plus 0.25 equals 0.50. As I line up my place values before I add. So you can pause the video right now and write down this one as in quarters. And what is a quarter? 1/4. And what is the decimal of a quarter, which would be 0.25. And now we'll write the sum of a 50-cent piece. Why? We seem to go more and more crazy obnoxious, but why not? A 50-cent piece, well, how many 50-cent pieces do I have in a dollar? Well, if I have one 50-cent piece and another, I would have 2, so 2 of them make a dollar, which would equal $1. So if one 50-cent piece would equal 1/2, or half of a dollar. So how many do I have right now? Well, I just have 1/2. How would I write that as a decimal? Well, I had to do that same strategy again. 2 equals over 100. So I can divide 2 divided by 100. I put a 5 here. That equals 10. Subtract 0. Bring down the 0. It would be 50. So I can times this one by 50, which means I take my 1 times 50. And it would be 50 100ths. So to write this as a decimal would be 0.50. And that is how we would do if we are dealing with 50-cent pieces. Now we've always been in things that are under a dollar. Now we're going to write these if they were over a dollar. So we want write the sum of quarters in each row as a fraction and a decimal. So we'll start right here. We have 1/4. That goes from right here. Plus another quarter, which would be right there. Plus another quarter, which would be right there. That makes 3. Another quarter makes 4. And we're still going on. Plus another quarter right over here, which would make, if we add those all up, that would be 5 quarters, or 5/4. If we write them as decimals, it would be 0.25 plus 0.25 plus 0.25 plus 0.25 plus 0.25 equals, well, I gotta add up, put all my decimals in there, so we'll use some space right here, 25, 25, 25, 25, and 25. Add up all of my 5s, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. Put the 2 up top because it's 25. 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2 is 12. So I put the 2 here. I carry the 1. I bring the 1 down. I keep my decimal in that same spot. So if I had 5 quarters, I would have $1 full and 25 cents, or I have $1.25. So you can pause the video and show us how we wrote down these quarters as decimals and how we added them up as well. So now it's your turn. So you can draw a big line. I want you to write the sum of pennies in each row as a fraction and then as a decimal. So you can pause the video, and good luck. Now I'd like you to write the sum of dimes in each row as a fraction and a decimal. Good luck. And now I should write the sum of quarters in this row as a fraction and a decimal. Just keep thinking about money. So write the sum of 50-cent pieces in each row as a fraction and a decimal. If you need really help, ask your parents if they have some, and then maybe you can keep it as like your learning tool. And last but not least, write the sum of quarters in each row as a fraction and a decimal. If you have any questions or comments or concerns, feel free to write them down or share them out. Also, if you have any strategies, make sure you share those as well. And once again, thanks for another good lesson.